to implement reviews into that process to, at the end of the day, get a clear, concise, and specific message to a prospect that resonates with them.
Hey everybody, this is Morgan J. Ingram here, host of the SDR Chronicles, bringing you sales development reps, sales development leaders, sales leaders, marketers. You guys already know, bringing you guys relevant context, relevant advice for your role in sales development. So super excited to have Daniel here today from G2 Crowd, very experienced sales development representative, also sales leader, leading different teams, talking on a team lead perspective, and just doing a lot of great things at G2 Crowd. So he's here today to talk about how SDRs can use reviews to amplify their demo flow and to help their progression towards their goals. So without any further ado, I'm going to let Daniel take a deep dive into that and tell us more about what he's learning.
Morgan, thanks for having me on. I've followed this podcast for some time now. I think once you were at 15 or so videos on the roll, and big fan of your work and what you're doing for the SDR community. So I wanted to figure out how I could add some value to the people that are watching. Myself a little bit. I'm the SDR team lead here at G2 Crowd. I was the second BDR hired here in February of 2016. Now G2 Crowd has been expanding and growing in the past year or so. We just got some funding from Excel Partners and LinkedIn. And we've scaled our team up to, I believe, is now 10 BDRs and hired a manager to go along with that. So that's just a brief background on me. And then just to dive, I guess, right into the topic of how to use reviews. It all stems back to leveraging what your customers are saying, leveraging your happy customers, and using what they're saying about you in a public setting to provoke some sort of interest from your prospects. And so obviously you're a sales rep. You're going to say your product is great. Your product is the best. And I can help you this way, this way, and this way. And sometimes you may not always be right because you don't know the prospect too well. But I think what speaks more to another prospect is talking about what those customers have said about you publicly on a third-party platform. And that is a bit more credibility into, obviously, these people weren't forced to say anything. It's not from a case study where you ask them all pointed questions about like how they helped you and that sort of thing. There's actually areas where some people will say they dislike something about a product, and they have to be very transparent about that process. So it just adds a bit of validity to kind of your words of what you're saying about yourself.
Yeah, and that's, I think it adds that extra, advocate, as you were saying, that you yourself are already kind of advocating. Obviously, as a salesperson, as you clearly have stated, is going to be the advocate of their product because they're going to want to sell it. But that review adds more credibility. So kind of dive into why reviews are ultimately important and why people should take more time to use reviews and leverage it for their process.
Yeah, absolutely. Reviews are important for a few reasons. And maybe just ask you, before you went to Terminus, did you review some of their reviews on Glassdoor before you ended up taking the job or before you started doing outreach to them?
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. So I did. I looked up stuff on Glassdoor. I, asked people like that may have, heard of it before, what their thoughts were. So that was kind of my context before kind of going into it.
Okay. And then when you were searching for, or are you an Amazon Prime shopper?
I am an Amazon Prime shopper.
Okay. So I'm assuming that whenever you're doing anywhere between a $5 to $100 purchase, the reviews that are on Amazon are a key indicator for what products are on the top of your radar.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. So like that's the crux of it, right? It's all about reviews and building trust with a vendor before you even have to speak to them. You get to know that they're offering a trustworthy product and that you're not going to get screwed over, before you reach out to them, and you're not taking the word of a salesperson, you're taking the word of past customers. So that's the power of reviews, and that's how it's now coming into B2B. That's why our founders started the company. They were shocked that there wasn't some sort of process for, if people are relying on reviews for their $5 to $20 purchases, why aren't there reviews from customers about the $10 million purchases in the enterprise software space, right? And so we started that process. One of the weaknesses we saw in Yelp and we saw in Glassdoor is that they're all anonymous. With us, we've added that identity to people. Every review that you leave on G2 Crowd is through a LinkedIn profile, which from an SDR perspective, we get to see where they work. So we get to see what their stack is, what other products that they're using, who they work for, and it allows us to identify them as a person, which is the whole foundation of this, so we can figure out who our prospects are and be able to cater a specific message to them. So an example of how this might be used is if you have Microsoft has CRM, which they've now rebranded to Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Sales, and then there's Salesforce CRM. They're two of the biggest players in that CRM space. There's a magic quadrant where the analysts have ranked them. But if you go on G2 Crowd, you get to see hundreds of reviews that have reviewed both of those platforms. And so if I'm a guy at Salesforce, I can go to Microsoft Dynamics and I can go view all of the different reviews that they have. And I can sort them by ranking 1 through 5 star. I can sort them by industry, whether it's like higher ed or it's education or hospital, healthcare, whatnot. And I can sort them by a couple different variables that are important. So if you have a prospect this is the perspective of the Salesforce person. So if he's trying to figure out, who's reviewed Microsoft so far, he can go read all of the negative reviews and he can go see which LinkedIn profile did those, and he can sort by enterprise if he's an enterprise sales rep. And he can go figure out which companies are working with Microsoft at this time. And then based on the review that person left, he can then take that review, send it to a prospect that he wants to switch over to Microsoft, and then identify the key weaknesses that they saw as a customer of Microsoft, and then maybe take a review from Salesforce that speaks to how they do well. So maybe one would be an implementation time for the CRM. If the prospect had a really crappy time with the implementation with Microsoft and he reflects that in his review, you can send that to that prospect and say, hey, saw that you had issues with this, but this is how some of our customers have enjoyed their implementation experience, and then list some reviews that way. And you're building credibility with that prospect to say, this is from a real person and what they said.
So kind of dive into a point that I felt that's pretty interesting, because people are listening to this and they're like, reviews are great, it's good, but what outreach is that going to supplement with reviews? So, right, is it better to do it on the phone? Is it better to do it through email? Is it better to do it through a video? Like, how do I get those reviews in a message for my prospect?
Yeah, you can use all of those platforms. I'd say phone. The easiest way through phone is just to reference a prospect's reviews and say, wow, like I read some of your reviews on G2 Crowd. You guys have a great product based on what a lot of your customers have said. You guys have a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think that's the easiest way through a review. Or if you want to nitpick specifics in some sort of review that you're picking out for that prospect, you can talk about, hey, John wrote this review about you guys on G2 Crowd, and he said this, this, and this. That would probably be the easiest way over the phone. Vidyard is probably the best way to do it because you get the whole visual. You get to show them exactly where the review lies. You get to show them a visual of the review so they can read it themselves as you're talking about it. And then email as well. You can do a screenshot of the review, send it over via that way.
Like screenshot through the email. How effective have you seen that?
It's very effective. Obviously, me working at the review site, I screenshot reviews all day and send them to businesses. Yeah. I'm a big fan just because specifically for me, our platform is very visual. We like to show off, I guess, our UI of the website, and it enables people to see exactly what they're looking at. You can say Microsoft profile, or you can show them exactly what it looks like, so it's living, breathing. So I love to use a lot of visuals and images in my outreach.
Cool. And then let's kind of go into the competitors' reviews. Do you leverage competitor reviews in a way to help you in certain factors? What have you seen that see any value, or is there any value looking at competitors' reviews at all?
Oh, of course there is. So it's funny, now that we're scaling the sales team, we've hired, it's got to be 10 new account executives
Oh, wow.
In the past couple months. And I think maybe the majority of them at their past jobs had started using G2 Crowd in their outreach to start closing business from an account executive perspective. And that's why they came to sell for G2 Crowd, because they got bought into the vision. So one way some of these guys did this is they worked at Financial Force, and their biggest competitor is NetSuite. So they would go, NetSuite has a ton of reviews on our site. They would go to our site, look at all of the negative reviews about NetSuite, figure out who they were from, and then reach out to those people with a specific comparison report. They're a client of ours, but they licensed the report from us, saying this is how our reviews rank us against, or this is how Financial Force reviews rank us against NetSuite. And that's what they use to build trust with those prospects in order to get them to switch over to their platform. And these were working for $1 million deals with organizations as another point to build trust with.
That's huge, and you want to build that trust. You want to build that credibility. So for SDRs that are kind of, okay, these reviews are great, I'm understanding the outreach process of it all. What are you telling the SDRs that are like, hey, I don't think these reviews can actually help me? Like, what are you saying to those people?
I would say that they likely need to get more and establish some sort of review strategy to get more customer voice behind them, to get some sort. Obviously, if they're a business, they have happy customers. Otherwise, they wouldn't be a business, right?
That's another problem.
Right. So get them to reach out to their customer base and get a full breadth of reviews that they can speak to. Because then that just gives you infinite ammo and infinite examples to reference in your prospecting outreach to whoever it might be. And you can associate like the size of business, or maybe it's a competitor. There's, you can say like, this is a similar size company in your industry that's also doing this, and reference that specific review in your outreach.
Yeah, I love it. And then what you talked about, a review strategy program, is this a correlation between sales and customer success that they need to align, or who does this really rely on to get those customer reviews rolling for your whatever review site that you're trying to go to?
At the core of it, it's a marketing play, and it's done by the corporate marketing team or CMO that will work with us directly to establish that sort of review strategy. You can obviously do it on your own as well. There's just certain challenges you face, but reviews are best when it's rolled out to the entire organization. They can help sales by giving them credibility from their customers. They can help customer success by looking at, what are customers saying and where are upsell opportunities for them, or where are some people we may need to spend some more time on and why. And then for marketing, they can use that as an overall message, like our customers have great things to say in some sort of campaign that they send out. And then product gets to say, what are our users saying and what would they like changed from our product that they can implement into their flow. So it's customer feedback, right, at the core. So that's valuable to everybody in the organization, because that's why you have a business. So
that kind of talk goes back into sales and marketing alignment. How important is that for this outreach program and this campaign strategy of these reviews and these emails that you're sending out?
Oh, it's huge. If you can give sales reps that extra edge they need to stand out from the competition, obviously mostly everything that marketing does is for the outcome of a sale from a client. So making sure that there's a strong alignment between your org and that marketing is making all the tools available to sales, making sure that they know that everything's available to them and how to use it and train them on what to do. That's everything, right?
Yeah, that is everything. So kind of touch on a point, and you talked about this, but I want to get a deeper dive on it. A point that you did a really good job with your review outreach, and then a time that maybe you or someone else did not do a good job of review outreach that kind of that went south, so we can understand the perception of how to really do this.
Yeah, I think the worst one, maybe from my perspective, was sending a negative review to a business via a social media channel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's not probably the best. I wouldn't recommend doing it. I would keep everything that you do on social positive and upbeat. You tend to strike people the wrong way if you go at them with a negative right away to say like, hey, you need to fix this, rather than, hey, we can help you. Puts them right on the defense, and it doesn't really help anybody. Somebody that's done this really well, there's plenty of examples. I'd say I think the best story I've heard is from those Financial Force guys that used it to sell to all of NetSuite's competitors. That's a big story for us. Yeah. Another one is Salesforce their CPQ team uses it to build another additional layer of credibility after they get off a first call with somebody to say, hey, this is everything that we just outlined of what we can do for you. And here's how it's backed up by user data about what our customers are saying, and use that in a follow-up email to further differentiate yourself. Those are 3 quick examples I can think of.
Those are really good examples for sure, and definitely shows the platform of utilizing reviews overall. So as an SDR, what have you found is your favorite form of outreach with these reviews? Is it phone, email, or is it video or social? Kind of touch on that.
Yeah, I'd say that mine has been email for sure, just because our site is, and I brought this up earlier, is so visual that giving people an image of exactly what you're talking about to say, this is where, or this is the review where your customer said really good things about you. Here's an image, and they get to read all the different points and see the review at face value. It's hard to relay that kind of thing over the phone. Obviously, we're SDRs, we're on the phone all the time, but my favorite way is to send screenshots and visuals through email channels. I think that would also work for video as well. I know you're a big fan of that.
I mean, that's super important. And the reason I asked that question is because I think everyone needs to understand like what their best channel is. I think obviously it's important to do phone, social, video, and email, but out of those 4, there's always going to be a high proponent of what your best outreach is. And so obviously it's that. For me, it's video. It's different for everybody. So that's why I really wanted you to touch on that and really talk about it. So from a leadership standpoint, a team lead, how do you help people in that direction for what is best for them and how to really implement those reviews? Because obviously some people may not know how to do that from the get-go.
Yeah, and it comes back to, and I think maybe what you were also alluding to is we both follow Gary Vaynerchuk, who talks about playing to people's strengths, and that's your best core asset is what you can do the best versus trying to be all well-rounded somebody. Focus in on what you're good at. So while that there are obviously metrics on a sales team that you need to hit, calls, dials, emails, all the rest, figure out what, if I'm coaching somebody, what is this person good at? Based on some of their background or what they're comfortable with, or what's the easiest. Are they a good writer? Can they get across a good message to somebody? Are they really good to connect with over the phone? Do they have a bubbly personality? Those type of things to see where you spend most of your time on to get quality meetings. And then the best way to implement reviews into that process to, at the end of the day, get a clear, concise, and specific message to a prospect that resonates with them enough to say, hey, okay, these guys might have something that can help me. And it's just it's all based on that individual. So figuring out the best thing for that one prospect and going about it the right way.
And how do you find that best thing for that prospect? Is that through LinkedIn search? Is that like, how do you really find that out?
Yes, I look at every prospect through LinkedIn. I go to their website to see what they're selling their product for. Sometimes if they're a public company, go check what their stock price is. Go see if they've been featured in any podcasts, or see if they've been had any articles written about them, and then try to find some sort of reference point to say, hey, read this about you. How does this also relate to something that we can help you with, or try to figure out what their goals and ambitions are based on that research that you're doing.
Yeah, and that's really big research, because the more that you know about your prospect, the more personalized your message is going to be.
Exactly. Nobody wants a random call from a sales guy that can't help them, that's just trying to get their dials in for the day, right? They want somebody to say, when they call them, they want to hear something that's valuable to them and say, okay, why should I keep talking to you? Give them that up front and show them that you did your research.
And that's why the research is important, right? And also you have to understand that like you're also competing with other SDRs who are doing the same thing as you.
Right. So how do you find that edge to stand out from everybody else and deliver some sort of value to the prospect that you're reaching out to? That's the whole goal.
Yeah, that's the major goal. And I think even with the added effect of reviews, it's really just another tool in the tool belt that you're using as an SDR.
Yep, absolutely. It's just that extra social validation that you can use in order to make sure that your product is presented as credible to somebody that you're reaching out to, because they're not going to take your word for it because you say that to everybody, right? So you need something to say, this is the person that's got my back, right? Or these are the people that has my back and how we've helped them.
Awesome. And so my other question is, when you're doing your initial outreach, do you always try to find a review?
Well, for me, yes. Obviously, I'm looking to help them get more reviews so that they can spread this across the organization. So If they have no reviews, then it's about the value of getting reviews. If they have a ton of reviews, it's about, hey, let me help you leverage what your customers have told you in order to help you achieve your goals, whatever those might be. And you can, obviously it's marketing, there's a couple key things they all focus on. You can guess pretty well based on the research that you do and what they say in LinkedIn.
And how many people are you surprised that have a ton of reviews that don't use the reviews?
Oh, there's tons. There's tons. I was just talking about Microsoft. They have 9,100 reviews, and they're not using any of them, to my knowledge, at least. So
yeah, that's crazy. That's like crazy to think about. Like that's so many people that you can be reaching out to and saying like, why did you even read this review, and like why you do those things? And so my next question goes into that. Obviously, from a G2 Crowd perspective, you guys have probably reviews as well, but from other softwares that you probably have talked to, set appointments with, have you told them to go back in their accounts, right, or that have set reviews, and actually talk to those individuals like on a one-on-one level to be like, hey, like why'd you actually send that review?
So are you asking if we advise businesses to respond to their reviews from their customers?
Right, or just you yourself, like as someone who obviously, because it's through LinkedIn, and I've seen them before, like it actually tells you who actually is sending the review. Are you actually reaching out to those people on a personal basis, like, hey, thanks for the review, like why'd you say that, and actually having like real conversations?
I've done it before for sure, for people that have left reviews on certain products. Typically, I think I would get more value out of that, say if like one of our competitors was on our website and somebody reviewed them and I'd struck up a conversation and say that. I think it makes less sense to reach out to a Microsoft customer. I mean, I guess the only value in that would be figuring out, you know, what they liked about them, everything else. But not something that I've done very much. But I would advise businesses, obviously, to respond to the people that have taken time out of their day to give them feedback and the reviews that they've done. They all have that ability to respond to those reviews, similar to Terminus. You guys have, I think, 40 reviews. You guys can go and respond to those customers on G2 Crowd and thank them for their time for writing a review.
Awesome. Daniel, you provided a lot of insight on reviews, how to leverage them, why it's important. And so the last question that I ask every single person that comes on the SDR Chronicles, what is the #1 piece of advice that you have for an SDR as they enter into their new role?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think of what I always tell my guys. I think that it's about doing, and I'm a huge proponent of doing a ton of research on prospects to add the most amount of value to them. I think a lot of people get caught up in mass numbers and trying to pump out a very subpar message to a lot of people using these tools like SalesLoft or Yesware or Outreach. I think the way that you stand out and the way that you help yourself achieve your goals is to provide value to your prospects. Figure out, or do the best to figure out how you can help them before you even have to speak to them. So if it does turn into a conversation, you're in a great position to give them advice and add value to what they're doing. That's the easiest way for you to book good appointments for your account executives that are going to close. And it's the best way for you to get experience if you're trying to move into sales, to get that rapport with a customer and do your research up front. I feel like that's the best advice that I can give to SDRs and the advice that I give to the guys underneath me. So
awesome. I love it. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be on the SDR Chronicles and providing so much insight. And as I always say, guys, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Morgan.